Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Top 10 Songs. Today I have a very special guest, someone we haven't seen on the show in a bit. SOT contributor Butch Jones.
Hello.
From Wappingers Falls, New York. Just a couple towns over from me. So Butch and I have been talking about having him on the show, and of course I have to pick out some really cool stuff for Butch to take part in, something that I know is really hits one of his sweet spots.
Yeah.
And so today we're going to do a top 10 show on guitarist Gary Moore and his solo career. Butch and I are both enormous fans of Gary Moore. In
Absolutely.
fact, I'll go on and say that I miss this guy probably more than any other musician who's passed away like in recent years.
In recent years, for sure.
Yeah, he's just, and there's not a day goes by that I don't think of Gary or his music or just like really just stop and think about what a loss it is that he's no longer with us.
And you know what the thing was is that he died right when he was starting to come back to rock.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, it's like he was coming back, so what would have happened? It's like, and then he's gone. It's like,
and then he's gone. And just, do you remember the day? I remember that. I remember the exact day when he passed away.
It was a Sunday.
It was a Sunday.
I
was I was on a Greyhound bus coming back from New York City. My wife and I went to the city for a long weekend. We were coming back, and we were like about halfway to the Newburgh terminal.
Okay.
And I was reading my phone, and there it was. And I was just like, I remember, I just deflated. Like, just sadness beyond belief.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the day that Dio died. It was basically the same thing for me.
Yeah, I remember it was a Sunday. I remember waking up and getting up out of bed and going to Facebook, and I saw a post. And it's like, no, that can't be right. And then you start digging in, and you're like,
because he was young, right? And what is he, 59, 58?
Yeah, something like that. But he had put some weight on, and I'm sure that didn't help. And I guess he was drinking a lot while he was on vacation there too. And
the heart was just like done.
That's a shame. Yeah, he's sorely missed for sure.
He's one of my biggest guitar influences.
Absolutely.
As well as one of my favorite. He's been a top 3 guy for me for
absolutely
since 82 or something like that.
I've always said for me, there's a school like a family tree type of thing, and Gary Moore has a family tree of all the guitar players that came from him that wouldn't exist, that got more success than he did.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't for Gary, Gary's like the forefather. There's so many guys that are like my favorite guys. John Sykes, of course, and Vivian Campbell and John Norum. If it wasn't for Gary, and they'll be the first ones to tell you.
Oh yeah.
So Gary was a cornerstone, and just unfortunately, especially here in the States, he never got what he deserved. It's sad.
What's really sad is, like, initially, and we're going to talk about a lot of these songs and albums, but when that Corridors of Power album first came out here, I mean, that really got him noticed.
Yeah.
Here. And that's what turned me on to him. And even though he was in Thin Lizzy before, I think it was Corridors of Power that really woke a lot of people up to say, oh my God, who is this guitar player?
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
But then his career never really picked up and took off like we thought. And it wasn't until he decided to go back to blues, which still got the blues in the turn of the 90s, that all of a sudden people were like, oh my God, who is this guy?
Who's this guy?
Again, he had been out there for years, right, doing like the hard rock thing.
Right.
So I think all of us who kind of really grew up on Gary as this hard rock, almost metal player, the blues period was almost kind of like why are you doing this?
Yeah, no, but absolutely. I was really, really fortunate that he played 3 shows in North America that Still Got the Blues tour. He did one in L.A., he did one in Toronto, and he did one in New York City at the Beacon Theater. And I had a friend of mine that worked in radio around here that took, he got us in, and I drove. And I'll never forget watching him do solo after solo after solo of the hard rock Gary Moore. Just shredding, just tearing it up like he always did. And, people standing up, giving a round of ovation and clapping. And I turned to the guy next to me. I'm like, I can see that you're into him. It's like, but are you new to him? And he's like, yeah, just Still Got the Blues. It's great. I'm like, yeah, but have you ever heard any of the older stuff? He's like, older stuff?
Yeah, that was the first album. That was the first album? Right, yeah.
And I was explaining to him, it's like, well, I'm glad that you're into him, but his solos are exactly the same that he's done his whole career.
Yeah.
Didn't matter if he was doing the fusion thing or he was doing Lizzy or the solo stuff. And then the blues thing it was around a different vehicle. And then but his solo playing was always the same, that fire.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really just exactly like you said, completely that. Oh, well, but why? You don't need to do this, but it got him a name.
Yeah, and later on I grew to really accept his blues period. Yeah. I still listen to it to this day, but it was just kind of like an abrupt change. Mm-hmm. And I think you and I were probably both at the same Gary Moore show at the Chance in Poughkeepsie, New York, just like about 2 years before then, right? After the war, I think, right? That was phenomenal. That's the only time I got to see him. Only time.
Oh, well, I was fortunate, like you were saying, with Corridors of Power in '83. He came here and opened for Def Leppard on Pyromania tour, so that was huge. And again, like you said, MTV was playing the video for always say that. Don't Take Me for a Loser. It wasn't that. Always Gonna Love You.
Always Gonna Love You. Yeah, that's the first song I ever heard.
Yeah, so you had the video from that. So he had some heat coming, and then he was out with Leopard, and everyone knows that tour was humongous. And Crocus was on that tour as well. So it was Def Leppard, Crocus, and Gary Moore. And Gary actually opened that show.
Played probably 30 minutes.
Yeah, but Ian Pace was playing drums for him, so that was really cool to see that. Right? But yeah, he was just he was a god. It's like you said, it's such a shame that he's gone. And
it really is.
But I guess it's kind of cool that there's a lot of people that have kind of finally recognized him or got into him after his passing. So, like they always said, the music's always still there, so that's great.
That's right. So you can imagine, after all this you just heard here, how putting together a top 10 songs was pretty damn tough. And I think for me, what made this really tough is that, he's got like the great hard rock tunes. He's got some killer instrumentals. Mm-hmm. And he's got the really good blues stuff. Yep. And so for me, I was kind of like, I wanted to give a good mix of all of them. But there are just certain songs that
make it impossible.
It's come on, from Corridors and Victims of the Future. There's songs on those albums. It's like, how can you not have those in the top 10? Yeah. So I went over this and I took stuff out, put stuff in. I mean, you guys know, you've heard this from me for months. Every time I do a band that I really dig. So Butch is going to kick off with his number 10, and we'll do our normal back and forth here, and we'll see kind of what we come up with. And again, Butch and I have not looked at each other's list, so I have no idea what he's picking, and vice versa. So I'm very curious.
Although I have a feeling that Pete kind of knows my era of where I'm going to be. So, but just like he said, Gary had that fusion era, he had the hard rock era, and he had the blues era. So, my number 10 is a song called Hurricane from Back on the Streets. It's a hurricane. it's Gary in his fusion era with the rock mixed in, and Simon Phillips playing drums on that, who was just killing throughout the whole song. So that's easily my number 10.
Yeah, Hurricane. That's great. And in fact, that's a really underrated, almost unknown album to a lot of people. And half that album is like a continuation of what he was doing with Coliseum 2.
Yeah.
There's really no difference there. So,
absolutely.
And I really struggle because there's some great instrumental tunes on that album. And I'm like, how can I leave this off? Anyway,
I did that yesterday, crossing stuff out.
It's terrible. So my number 10, again, going back to Corridors of Power, a tune which I've always loved a lot, and I especially liked I love the ending solo, which just kills me. I Can't Wait Until Tomorrow.
Oh.
Right? It's kind of like a mellow tune and whatever, but then all of a sudden he unleashes, and it's just like the whole like coda to that song is like just chills running up and down my spine. And he was a great singer.
He was.
And I think that's one of my favorite vocals from him.
Yeah, you're right. He was. It's Gary. Yeah. I mean, is there a bad song that he played on?
No, there's not. It really is.
Even if the song was bad, his playing, his solo saved it. Yeah. He was amazing.
It's funny because like there's a couple tunes that because how I do this is I go through all the albums and I start picking out my favorites from each album. But like like a song like Teenage Idol, which is really kind of a silly tune. But again, you're absolutely right. It's like, out of all the tunes on that album, it's probably like my least favorite, but yet he's awesome on it. Even though it's kind of a juvenile song, it's still anyway.
He kills.
He kills. So anyway, number 9 for Butch.
Number 9 is The Messiah Will Come Again from After the War, which to me, honestly, I think that's the beginning of Gary going to the blues side. That could have easily fit on any blues album that he did after that. And that's, if you guys don't know, that's a song that was originally done by Roy Buchanan. And if you ever hear his version, it's almost as fiery as Gary's. Gary's just on everything. He just steps on the gas and makes it his own. But man, that you talk about emotion. if that song doesn't kind of make you get a little misty, he crushes on that. So yeah, the Messiah will come again.
And I'm not going to talk too much here because we're going to hear more about that song coming up soon. But I will say, there was not one cover tune that Gary Moore did that was not awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of instances where he would cover an old song and it would come out better than the original.
Yeah.
All right? Again, we're going to talk about this later, but what I love is Butch is not even looking at his list. He's got it all memorized already. Props to you, my friend. All right, so my number 9, coming from the Dirty Fingers album, Lonely Nights. That riff just slays me. That's a really kick-ass tune.
That record, man. Thank you, Vivian Campbell. Vivian Campbell talked about that record in a magazine in like '83, and I guess it had, really at that time had just come out, but no one in America knew anything about it.
That was only available as an import.
It was only available as an import,
yeah.
And he mentioned it. I'm like, what's Dirty Fingers?
Yeah.
And then I found that. Forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another underrated album.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Number 8.
Number 8. Okay. Well, this, like you said, this hurts so much to try to do this list because my number 8 is from Run for Cover, his Run for Cover album, Military Man, with my guy Phil Lynott.
Yep.
That song, I think it is my favorite Gary Moore guitar solo ever.
Yeah, it's a great one.
You get 2 for the price of 1 in that song. The first one is just, it's nice and lyrical, and then the second one, he just unloads. It's just, again, that's another song, for me, at least, to this day. I mean, that was 1985.
Yeah. And
Phil Lynott died at the beginning of 86, so that record always means a lot to me. So that makes me misty. It makes me misty just talking about it.
And another song that should have been really big for him, or for them, I should say, right? You know, again, that's another album, a missed opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's a very strong album, but it's almost like 2 albums in one, because you had, Glenn Hughes was involved in, a handful of the songs.
Yep.
And I don't know about you, but I think that Glenn Hughes and Gary Moore together is a match made in heaven.
Absolutely.
But Glenn was just in no condition to stick with anything at that point in time, because he had the failed thing with Black Sabbath, and then with Gary Moore, I mean, he just couldn't stay out of his own way at the time, which is a shame because he was still singing great.
He was singing great,
but his life was such a disaster from substance abuse. It's like, God, what could have been, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I remember how excited I was when I heard, because back then there was no internet, so you would hear about these pairings on MTV or reading Kerrang or Cream magazine or whatever,
sure. Yep.
And I heard that like Glenn Hughes and Gary Moore were playing together, and he was going to be on the new album, and I was like, wow, that's like the greatest news ever.
Absolutely.
And then by the time the album came out, it was already gone. I'm like, oh, what happened here? Jesus. Glenn, goddamn you.
Well, at least he made up for it. Hughes made it up for it after that with putting out all those records. He's got like 95 records.
Yeah, and he's who sings better than him? Man,
no
at
one.
His age, nobody.
So. No one. He's the greatest still alive, man.
Yep.
Phenomenal.
So, but that's a great pick.
Yeah, thank you.
My number 8, I'm going to go back to Dirty Fingers album. I've always loved this tune a lot, and Gary recorded it with Greg Lake, and he also recorded on his own album, Nuclear Attack. Well, he wrote the damn song.
He wrote the damn song.
So I remember hearing Nuclear Attack on WPDH in Poughkeepsie radio station, 101.5, back in the day when they would play, like, good new stuff.
Yep.
And it was the Greg Lake version. I was like, holy cow, who is that
Exactly.
doing all these air raid siren, And it's a great tune. It's a great tune. Whoever thought that Greg Lake would be singing like metal songs.
Right.
But, yeah. And I remember, just starting to play guitar back then. I was trying to learn that riff, and I was like,
man.
that's awesome stuff. So that's my number 8, Nuclear Attack. So number 7, on to Butch.
Number 7 is Murder in the Skies from Victim of the Future.
Yeah.
First of all, Gary gives you a guitar solo before the song.
If you have the UK pressing only.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's not on the US one. The US one does not have the lead-off guitar solo.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
I did not know that.
They did all that weird stuff back in the day. You would get these different pressing. Yeah, the UK version has this blistering. It's almost like the End of the World guitar.
Yeah, exactly.
And on the US version, that wasn't it. It just kicked off. In the US version,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. I did not. Well, then, guys.
It doesn't matter. That's the version you want to hear.
Yeah, you want to hear the UK version. So if you've never heard that, then find that, because Gary and Ballistic is just synonymous. So it's just, but the album after Quarters of Power, after he had been out with Def Leppard, so he comes back and again is trying to let everyone know who the man is, and he goes crazy on that song. That intro is awesome, but the song itself is just Murder in the Skies is just great.
And I love the lyrics and just the whole vibe of the song. It's just really serious and just like metallic and
he's Angry Gary. There was nothing better than the pissed off Gary Moore.
Yep, that's right.
And that song is awesome.
Yep. That's a great tune. We're going to hear more about that coming up. All right. My number 7, sticking on the same album, Victors of the Future. Again, talking about Gary tackling someone else's song, making it his own, and arguably better than the original Shapes of Things. For me, that guitar solo in that song is just like pure genius.
Absolutely. It's perfect.
And it's like if you are someone who never heard the Yardbirds ever and you heard Shapes of Things, you're like, oh my God, that's like one of the best Gary Moore songs ever. Damn right it is. Exactly. Forget the Yardbirds version. I mean, that's cool too. But so I've always dug that. And when he would play that live, because that's on the We Want More live album, and it's just awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. So that's my number 7. We're up to number 6 now.
Number 6. Back to Corridors of Power for Cold Hearted. I don't know. I can just say the same thing over and over. It's like Gary's just his emotion. The word I always use, and I'll continue to use it after this too, is fiery. He had the fire in everything he did. From even back, if you've ever heard any of the old Skid Row stuff, not Skid Row from New Jersey, but the Skid Row from Ireland. Yeah. Gary, he had a fire in him that I think it's either you have that kind of fire or you don't, guitar player wise. And he had in everything he did, whether it was, slow blues or fusion or whatever it was, the fire. And in Cold Hearted, he just has that slow burning blues fire that like he's hurt inside. Yeah. And it shows, man. I love that song.
Some great bends and pinch harmonics and all this great stuff. And I love something about the production on that album, Victims of the Future. It's just like, the way his guitar sounds on that album, and that song in particular, that's just, great stuff. I love that album. I love both of those albums quite a bit. Because my number 6, Don't Take Me for a Loser from Corridors of Power. Done. I don't need to say anything
else.
Exactly. I really grew up with those two albums in a big way. So each one of them, cheers. So each one of them is just like really special to me, and it's like I like that song because I like the hooks. The riffs are great, and the solo is just otherworldly, and this,
And he had the best Strat hard rock guitar tone ever.
Yeah.
It wasn't single coily. It had a grit to it. Like
you almost had to stop and think, is he playing his Les Paul?
Exactly.
Strat, right? And not too often that happens, right? You usually can tell the two apart pretty easily, but not with Gary.
No.
Not with Gary.
That guitar. Ugh.
So, it's my number 6. All right, number 5. What you got?
My number 5 features my favorite drummer on the planet, Cozy Powell. Speak for Yourself from After the War.
Good tune.
Another just barn burner.
Yeah.
Gary just pissed off. Just his vocals are phenomenal. Cozy is bashing in it, and the solo is, oh my God, that's I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. I can hear the solo in my head. He's just torches on that song, and every song that Gary does or did is like he has something to prove.
Yeah,
and
comes from the gut.
Man, and that's
a good tune. Yeah, it's a good album. That album came out after the Wild Frontiers album, which I like, but that was kind of like Gary doing like the Celtic kind of thing. Yeah. And I remember being like, it's okay. And then that album came out. We're like, yes, he's back
to it.
Not for long,
exactly.
but definitely. There's some real good songs on After the War.
Yeah,
I like
sure.
that album a lot. All right, so my number 5. Murder in the Skies from Victims of the Future. Yeah, so we already kind of discussed that. I love that tune. It's just heavy Gary. Heavy Gary. So, all right, number 4 for Butch. What do you got?
I said, now I got to cheat. Run to Your Mama from Dirty Fingers.
Good one. That's on my honorable mentions. That's a good one. Yeah, I like that one.
Again, thanks a lot, Viv. That, man. Tommy Aldridge plays on that record.
Yeah.
If you guys don't know, that's for whatever reason that record has no liner notes and no credits at all. And I mean, if you're a fan of Tommy Aldridge, you hear a couple of notes, a couple of beats, and you know that it's Tommy Aldridge. There's nobody that plays like
been
him.
On so many great albums over the years. Holy crap! Yeah.
But yeah, Run to Your Mama. That's my number 4.
That's a good one. I like. That's a great pick. My number 4, from Back on the Streets, Parisian Walkways.
I was wondering if you were gonna do
I
that.
have to. Yeah, it's just so gorgeous. That we've been talking a lot about the Gary Moore fire and all that kind of stuff, and that's fiery too, but in a different way. That's kind of soulful, and that's. I had to put something with him and Phil on here. It's just it's a very special song. It always has been, and one I've always had a soft spot for.
Oh, it's a good one.
Yeah, that's
for sure.
Yeah.
So number 3.
Number 3.
Sticking with Dirty Fingers because that record means a lot to me. Hiroshima, however you want to say it. I think on the song they say Hiroshima. But again, that's the first song on Dirty Fingers, and that riff, and then Aldridge comes in, and it's over.
Yeah.
So I can remember hearing that when I was 15, I think 15 or 16 for the first time. And being floored, you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, it's a ballistic tune, yeah.
And that was it. So that record is means so much. So that's easily my number 3.
Yeah, that's a great one. That album is just really special because it's either like, barn burner hard rock tunes or blazing fusion tunes. There's no filler on that album at all, It's it's not, because on some of his later albums he would always fit in like a ballad or two or whatever, but not on that album. No. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yep.
All right, my number 3, title track to Victims of the Future.
Yep.
That's anthemic to the nth degree.
Yep.
And that guitar tone, the riffs, the little fills, the solo, it's just, yeah.
It's quintessential Gary.
Yeah, I dig that a lot.
Yep.
When that album first came out, I remember buying the LP and putting that in. And that's you get that little mellow intro, and all of a sudden, oh, this is kind of sweet.
Yeah.
And then,
Gary kicks in.
That's it. Yeah, fond memories of that. So that's my number 3.
And I you know what? And I even got to say, no, I had that on my list, and I'm like, oh. And then I heard something else. I'm like, but how am I have to get that in? So what? I'm like, well, I love Victims of the Future, but I got Murder in the Skies in there. So I took Victims off. But believe me, it's a tie that it should be in my 10.
You know what I usually say when it's something like that? I say, it's my number 11.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
These are not easy to do.
No.
They're not easy to do, especially when you have such an emotional attachment to something.
Absolutely.
So my number 2 was almost my number 1, but my number 1, End of the World, Corridors of Power. It was that song. I remember the first time I heard it, and again, I heard it on WPDH. They would never play anything like that now. But I heard that song and the guitar solo. I was like, holy crap. Who is that? Exactly. Certainly isn't Eddie Van Halen, right? Yep. And then the vocals kick in. I'm like, wait, that's Jack Bruce.
Yeah.
And then just the whole song is a sledgehammer. And then, the siren wails and all. I'm like, oh my God! So I've always just loved that tune to death. And he would play that live. I mean, there's a video of him playing in Sweden, I think it is. That's a popular concert video that's out there where he does. It's right around the time I think Wild Frontier album or something like that. He had what's his face on keyboards on that.
Neil Carter.
Neil Carter.
Yeah.
And he does a killer version of End of the World on there. It's just like, oh my God! So to me, that's like heavy metal Gary at his best. And I know for some people, who are not into kind of like all the bombast and the heavy stuff, they're like, oh my God, that's just wankery and all that. But I like that from Gary. It's maybe not all the time, but man, when that guy wants to just go berserk, nothing like him.
Well, I think it's going to be funny how our 1 and 2s play out then. Because my number 2 is Rockin' Every Night from Corridors of Power.
Wow. That's a good one.
That riff. Just, again, I was 15 when I heard that and just leveled. Gary, pissed off, angry Gary.
And that solo was short and sweet.
Short and sweet. He just, and the whole song is like under 3 minutes long. He just kills. But yeah, Rockin' Every Night's my number 2.
Cool. Did we miss one in there? How did I get ahead of you?
No, you just kept going on.
That's okay. There you go. Okay, sorry.
But you want me to do my number 1 first?
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
So my number 1 is what he just finished talking about. End of the World is my number one. It's...
In a way, I'm almost glad I flip-flop my two because it's very rare that me and my guest are on point with everything. So, yeah, End of the World is a good guess, right?
You've already said it all.
Yeah.
That's the first time hearing that is just wow.
Yeah,
that was unbelievable. So yeah, that was the easy number one.
Yeah, that's my number one is one you mentioned a little bit ago. And again, I was listening to both back to back this morning, and I was like, yeah, I just love this song too much, and it's an instrumental. The Messiah Will Come Again. For me, is just because, again, I agree with you. It kind of is the bridge to some of this bluesier stuff, but there's still plenty of rock fire in there, and it's just spine chilling. There's just, and I also wanted to throw the Loner in my list. And that's in my honorable mentions, because they almost go hand in hand.
Yeah, they do.
But The Messiah Will Come Again is just, man. Emotional guitar playing doesn't get much better than that. and Roy's original is great too.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah.
But man, there's something about Gary's playing. Believe he played a Les Paul on that in the studio. If I'm not mistaken. And so that's my favorite Gary Moore tune. But again, as I say every week, this list could change tomorrow. But
it changed 8 times to get to here.
Yeah, exactly. But it's. Some great tunes on here, but that's not all. He's got a lot of other great songs. So I'm gonna run through.
Well, wait, actually, even before you get to that,
yes,
I wondered when I knew that we were going to do this. I wondered to myself if either one of us were going to pick anything from the blues period, and neither one of us did.
Neither one of us did. Yeah.
I'm not surprised, honestly. And again, like he just said, he's gonna
Still Got the Blues is probably in easily in my top 20.
Yeah,
but and there's a lot of great material in the blues period.
Absolutely.
But I grew up with the rock stuff.
There it is.
Butch and I are about the same age. So, yeah, it's just,
Yep.
It's not to downplay any of that blues stuff because
No.
it's great. But, these are our top 10 favorites.
Absolutely.
That's just the way it goes. So I wrote down a shitload of honorable mentions. Butch didn't, but he's got it all up here.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to rattle off a bunch and I'll let Butch do some. From Back on the Streets, the title track is great. Fanatical Fascist, I always liked a bit. Now, the instrumental stuff. Flight of the Snow Goose was in my original top.
It wasn't mine, too. It was my number 10. It was my number 10.
That's a great
took it off.
That's great. For any of you fusion guys out there, go get Back on the Streets. Like I said, it's half blistering hard rock tunes, and the other half is all instrumental fusion stuff. Hurricane, we already mentioned. What Would You Rather Be or a Wasp?
There it is.
Great one,
there
right?
it is.
So, from Coroners, I'm Always Gonna Love You is a ballad, but it's got a great guitar solo. I always loved it.
Absolutely.
Wishing Well, another cover. That is Dynamite.
Oh, boy.
It's an old free tune.
Absolutely.
Would you say it's better than the free version?
Yes.
Arguably, right?
Yep. And on top of that, another guy, like I had mentioned earlier, John Norum, does a cover of that on one of his solo records, and he does Gary's solo note for note.
Right, instead of Bono Picasso.
So he does, so it just goes to show you. Back to that family tree thing.
It's telling you. Gonna Break My Heart Again, I always liked. That's got a killer song.
Yep.
A killer solo. I love that. And Rockin' Every Night. What else? From Dirty Fingers, Hiroshima, you already mentioned. The title track. Pretty great. Bad News.
Bad News.
Run to Your Mama. Really Gonna Rock. From Victims, I always love Empty Rooms. I think is another tune that I think should have been enormous for him.
Yeah.
And there's if you haven't seen it, you need to. Google or go to YouTube and Google Gary Moore best guitar solo. And up will come a live version of Empty Rooms that's like 11 minutes long. And the whole last half of the song is the most incredible Gary Moore solo you will ever hear. I'm telling you, do it. It is. I have that video bookmarked, and the video is not the whole song. It's just the guitar solo, and it's like 6 minutes long. And it's absolutely breathtaking.
Oh,
and
wow.
I go specifically and watch that at least once every couple of months. It's that good. Trust me on that. Devil in Her Heart.
Yeah.
Which is a great tune.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that a lot. From Run for Cover, the title track. Reach for the Sky. Military Man. Out in the Fields. Nothing to Lose. All Messed Up.
I don't think I have to give you any of my songs because he's nailing them all.
I'll mention them. Okay. From Wild Frontier, Over the Hills and Far Away, title track, The Loner, Thunder Rising. From After the War, the title track, Speak for Yourself, Lead Clones. Well, that's kind of silly, but whatever. Blood of Emeralds was in my early top 10 and got booted. Blood of Emeralds is great, right? That's almost like, Emerald Part 2.
Exactly.
Forget the title. It's just got a similar feel.
Yep. Black Rose. It's almost like Black Rose Part 2.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, even more so that. Yep. Running from the Storm, another great one. From Still Got the Blues, how about the title track, obviously. I always like as the years go passing by. Mm-hmm. I think he does a Dynamite, Oh Pretty Woman. Again, back to Gary killing a cover.
Yep.
And then Midnight Blues is a really good tune. Yep. And then I had to throw it in here because neither one of us mentioned it because it's technically not a Gary Moore solo album, but from the G-Force album. How about White Knuckles, Rockin' and Rollin'?
I knew that was going to come right there.
I mean, that's like blistering Gary. And I'm not a huge fan of that album, but I do like it. The song You is actually very good.
Yes.
And I tossed about throwing a couple of the BBM songs in here, but I'm like, we'd be going on forever. So.
And we didn't even touch on the Coliseum 2 stuff.
No, that's all great. Yep. I mean, there's nothing bad there. So that's we should just quick run down our top 10s real quick. All right, so for me, number 1, The Messiah Will Come Again. 2, End of the World. 3, Victims of the Future. 4, Parisian Walkways. 5, Murder in the Skies. 6, Don't Take Me for a Loser. 7, Shapes of Things. 8, Nuclear Attack. 9, Lonely Nights. And 10, I Can't Wait Until Tomorrow.
Wow. And my top 10, now I am cheating again. My number 1 is Into the World. Number 2, Rockin' Every Night. Number 3, Hiroshima. Number 4, Run to Your Mama. Number 5, Speak for Yourself. Number 6, Cold Hearted. Number 7, Murder in the Skies. Number 8, Military Man with Phil Lynott, and I still think that's my favorite Gary solo ever. Is that second solo?
That could be a whole separate show, right?
Boy. Number 9, The Messiah Will Come Again. And number 10, Hurricane from Back on the Streets.
Great lists. Great songs. Oh. Great artist. Totally missed. And if you can't tell, we are both enormous fans. So hopefully we've got some fans out there. And let us know your favorite Gary Moore solo songs. We'd love to see it. We read our comments, so I'd love to check it out. Remember, nobody's wrong here. It's all what you like, what's near and dear to you, so feel free to add in any comments. And while you're at it, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook all the time. We're on Twitter, and, of course, we're here on YouTube constantly lately. We've got lots of great stuff coming up. He's coming back. We're going to do a brand new show. We have not done one of these yet. Thin Liz. No, I'm sorry. Not... Trash what I just said. We've done plenty of these. I'm thinking of something else. Thin Lizzy, best to worst albums. Okay, you guys absolutely loved my Thin Lizzy top 10 songs. He's pissed off I didn't invite him for that.
Yeah, Lizzy's my favorite band of all time.
But I said, all right, well, we're going to have you do best to worst albums because we haven't done one on Thin Lizzy yet. So, awesome. And that will be a lot of fun. So stay tuned, and we'll see you real soon.
Take care.